Hi, welcome back to Center Webcast. This is episode 12. This is our final segment where we talk a little bit about data sources. And Brandon, you had a couple of data sources you wanted to share, right?
Yes, I do. Lots of information going around with people talking more about testing. There's national policy discussing immigration. This got me looking into a few things today and finding some nice data sources so that I thought I'd share with everybody. Just a few sites here. So Mr. Stutzman talked about earlier in the broadcast, the health department of health for PA. It has county by county numbers. Here we are in Indiana sitting with 55 positive cases, 453 negative cases, and 4 deaths. So people can go to the Department of Health. He says, any data that's coming out of PA is coming from the Department of Health. Several sites and universities are turning this into geographic information. So I believe this one is out of Johns Hopkins, if I'm not mistaken. But this has county level data. So you can click here. Here's Indiana County. We have, I think that's a bit.
I think that's a zip code. That's a zip code.
That's level. Zip code. Yeah, that's zip code based. So here in Indiana borough proper, 18 of those cases. So this gives you more county by county data in a nice map. My third source here is also taking the PA health data in a different way. This comes from WTAE. This is a nice graph to see, okay, are we flattening the curve? So the flattening of the curve is what's going on with new cases per day. And you're seeing on 4/4, there was probably the largest spike. So this is PA wide. And you're seeing that we're hovering around the same rate. So this is what Mr. Stutzman was talking about when he said it does look like we are flattening the curve somewhat. However, then he went on to with his really educated opinion about being very careful before we open back up too quickly, because if you open up too quickly, you would expect, given what we know of the virus, in 2 weeks for this thing to start spiking back up. So that's cases per day, and this is deaths per day. Deaths per day looks a little bit different from cases per day. So you're starting here in PA, you're seeing somewhat of a trend that deaths are still going up. So that's another warning sign against reopening too early. A next one, again, this is Johns Hopkins. Again, this is another Indiana breakdown that they have based on race and ethnicity, based on these are general population. So they're putting general population stats with our confirmations and things like that. Okay, one last one, if you'll bear with me, everyone. I know data makes people's eyes gloss over somewhat, but I thought this was a very interesting one. Lots of things going around with the U.S. has the most total cases in the world. We've taken the lead in that. What you want to do is be careful with that, because we also have a much larger country than many individual countries in Europe. And so you want to look at it as a ratio, a comparable ratio. And so our world in data, this is taking data from the CDC and other agencies, and putting a cross-country comparison in map form, number of cases per millions of people. So what it turns out is, not only is the U.S. Leading the nation, leading the world in number of cases, but it's also very, very high in number of cases per million people. So we are, I believe we are currently sitting at the 15th highest ranked nation. but all the other nations higher than us are very small countries, such as Iceland, Ireland, and Italy. So our population, it's the combination of scale. We have a lot of population, but we also have a high infection ratio right now. So that's also worrying. Last bit, we're starting, the good news that IUP and IRMC came out with, that they are going to be rolling out testing, is a good thing. And as Mr. Stutzman and Dr. Loomis said, that's going to be important going forward. I wanted to look at overall, there's been lots of complaints about, are we testing enough? And so I looked at data on what the US is doing. And what it shows is, since in this past month, we have been ramping up testing. With many comparable countries, we are ramping up as quickly as they are. So this is not tests overall, this is tests per thousand people. So the US is consistent with the ramp up that Canada has done, although Canada did start at a higher place. United Kingdom is a bit lower in testing per thousand people. South Korea, France as well. Italy is higher, and they were having the ravage of this was hitting them much earlier. So along with comparable countries, the U.S. has scaled up fairly well. Of course, as our earlier guests were saying, if you want to reopen up, then testing is indeed key. And so we're going to have to see a much greater scale up of testing on that.
And I'm excited to see what happens with the collaboration between IUP and IRMC. If we can get more testing happening there, I think that's a huge deal.
Yeah,
and
it being local. Yeah, and it being local is another important aspect of that.
Thank you, Dr. Vick. We don't talk about it, but Brandon, our engineer, actually has a PhD in economics, so he knows what he's talking about. Sybil, we're at the end here. What do we got coming up next? Oh, are you there?
Well, we have a very packed show on very informative. Can you hear?
It's you're in and out.
Again?
All right, start.
Okay.
Go again.
Try it again.
Okay. All right. So on Thursday, informational, I can guarantee that much. We have Senator Bob Casey coming on again. He will be back. Dr. Malika Turner from IUP. She's the Vice President of Student Affairs. We also have the President or the Executive Director of ICAP coming on as well. We are looking forward to having everyone on the show. I think our final guest will be Mr. Michael Vukovic from the Indiana Area School District, the superintendent. There's some things changing as far as curriculum and how what students are going to be expected to do and what parents are going to be expected, some things with attendance, all types of things like that, that he's going to try to get information out to the public so they can be informed and keep the education system kind of going in the midst of all the COVID madness. So looking forward to hear from him too.
Awesome. And we do have, I think the Attorney General is going to be on coming up in a couple of weeks. Senator Pittman will be back. And indeed, next week, Steve Wolf from IRMC has confirmed, so he'll come back and tell us a little bit about where we are at. Thank you for joining us, everybody. That concludes episode 12. We'll be back on Thursday at 6 p.m. Facebook Live. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.